We are like rounded stones in a pile, and we need to be like bricks in a wall. What do I mean by this? Well, let me ask you a few questions. First, what do you do when your ally is attacked? I say ally. You may not be personal friends with them. When I say ally, I mean somebody who is anti-war or questioning the establishment, or maybe even explicitly agrees with you ideologically, or this kind of thing. What do you do when your ally is attacked? Now, if you're acting like a brick in the wall, you're acting strong, how you need to be, your reaction is to support your ally completely and resolutely. Completely and resolutely. But if you're acting like a rounded stone in a pile, you can't support anything. You can't support anything. So when your ally is attacked, you just move out of the way of the boot. You get treaded by the boot, right? You can't repel any attacks. You are a rounded stone when you need to be a brick in the wall. Now, let's say that somebody attacks me. Now, I know I don't have this massive amount of social clout, but let's pretend that I have 100K, a million subscribers, right? And you agree with what I'm saying generally. You like me, maybe even. Or maybe you don't like me. Maybe you don't like me particularly much, but you agree with the core message of what I'm saying. And then somebody comes out with this or that story, maybe it's true, maybe it's not, about something bad that I did. Then what do you do? You have to act like a brick in the wall. I am a brick in the wall for you. I have supported people like Caleb Maupin, and it's not easy for me to continue supporting them among this onslaught of people who are pressuring me to denounce him, to split with him, to say that what he did, the mistakes that he made, were too far. I have an onslaught of pressure telling me to do this, and I will never give in to it. I will never give in to it. I stand resolutely with Caleb Maupin. I am a brick in the wall. I support him. I support him. And guess what? I also support Jackson Hinkle. Now, I know a lot of people who are now defending Caleb dislike this attack that Jackson made on him, as do I. But even though I disagree with this attack which Hinkle has made, I still like Hinkle. I still consider him an ally. I consider myself, maybe not a real concrete movement. We're not part of the same organization or anything like that. But I consider myself on his side. On his side. And I think that people need to start thinking differently. You're still thinking like you're out for yourself. You're out for yourself. Oh, well, if I don't like, for example, the LaRouche movement aesthetically, say you don't like their aesthetics. You're a punk guy, you're a rock and roll guy. You don't like the classical aesthetic, so you denounce them. You're stupid. You're not a brick in the wall. You are a stone. You are a rounded stone. Now, let's say that I don't like PSL. Now, this is a real example. Well, the reason I have attacked PSL is very simple. It's very simple. Because they actively undermine the ability to build a broad coalition of people. If you're a sectarian on your own, and you consider yourself separate and above from the rest of the people who advocate your general viewpoint, then I feel like I'm free to attack you because you have consciously chosen not to ally with people, not to think of yourself as part of something greater. You have chosen to support nothing. You've chosen to support nothing. And, you know, I think that a lot of people, more and more people now, are smoking pot and getting stoned. And you're somebody who's like a brick. You know, your personality is more like a brick, where you actually stand for things, you stand up for yourself. But when you smoke pot, you get stoned and you turn into a stone. And all of these people that depend on you, you let them down because you're stoned. You can't hold anything up anymore. You can't hold anything up, and you go rolling your own way. You know, you become a rolling stone. And when you smoke pot, you have this nihilism where you can't understand objective morality correctly anymore. See, objective morality is that if we want to create something which is morally better, that means that we need to objectively support something which may have moral characteristics that don't resemble the same ideals which we wish to support. And if you want to, for example, have a revolutionary war of independence, you're an Indian, say, and you're overthrowing the British, you may need to do bad things to other Indians, to the traitors. I'm sorry, you may have to do it. And those acts in isolation, like the killing of the Romanovs by the Soviets, those acts in isolation have a strong negative moral character. But objectively, in the sense of objective morality, those acts actually are, again, not something that I advocate for, not something that I praise, not something that I say, you know, is good, but they are what must be done. They are what must be done. I don't think it's good that Russia had to go into, you know, these territories, formerly Ukraine. I don't think it's good that they had a war with Ukraine or a special military operation. I don't think it's good, but I think that they did what is necessary because of the objective morality of the Russian people. The Russian people need to be defensible. And if Ukraine is owned by the West, if it's part of NATO and the EU, Russia's sovereignty is put into question. It's no longer defensible. Russia loses their objective morality. And in order to support what is moral and good, there is a point where we have to say, either I can sacrifice everything in order to avoid one act which in isolation has a negative moral character, or I can win it all. And of course, you try to think of a better way, but sometimes there simply is no better way. And when you smoke pot, you lose this sense of objective truth. It affects your memory, and you become fixated on this isolated situation. Now, I think that Jesus was right when he said we have to forgive our enemies and be kind to our enemies, right? Instead of killing somebody who has done you ill, you can let them go and wish them forgiveness. You know, he was right in that we should. The question is, can we actually? Can we actually? And if you can't actually do it without risking something much greater and more important, then you should do what must be done and ask for forgiveness afterwards. You cannot be this perfect, peaceful person. And what happens when good people are weak? What happens when good people don't stand up for something greater than themselves? What happens when good people act like stones rather than bricks? They get trampled, they get destroyed. When good is weak, when good people become peace-loving hippies, when good people are afraid to defend what's theirs, when good people are afraid to stand up to power, when good people are afraid to get together and fight for something greater than themselves, that is when they get trampled and destroyed, and that is when we fail. And that has been the history of the American socialist movement, the American peace movement. That has been our history up until this point. We are stoned. We are stones. We are not a brick wall. We do not stand for anything. We do not create structures which can resist attacks. We get trampled and destroyed at every single turn. Now, I know that these words, these ideas, these have the potential to change some people's minds. This has the potential to make some people realize the seriousness of the situation. Because this is truly a situation where if we do not succeed, America as a country may very well cease to be. And I don't mean this in the sense of what a leftist may advocate, which is, you know, we need to become part of Turtle Island and, you know, America is going to reform into something better. No. What I mean is that America is going to be plunged into a deep darkness of complete devastation and fascism. That is what I mean. If we fail, that is what is going to happen to our country. Millions and millions of people dying of starvation. Millions and millions of people displaced, jobless. Millions of people, hungry children, a dying society. That is what I mean. And unfortunately, I think that people aren't taking it seriously enough when they think about this. Now, that's not even the worst. Sure, we could have a dying society. We could also be destroyed by nuclear war. If we continue this aggressive war policy and continue to ignore the global economic structures which are emerging and refuse to participate in them, we could go to war with nuclear-armed powers like Russia and China. We could be completely obliterated if we fail. Now, I am actually hoping that people will wake up and realize what is the more peaceful and correct route to take. I'm hoping that some of our leadership in this country will take the first steps to make a change, and that we will be able to democratically shift to a better system and a better way of being. I hope that it will happen peacefully and democratically, but if it doesn't, the only thing that is going to shape people from these rounded stones into bricks, the only thing that is going to turn us into people who request democracy, into people who demand democracy and command democracy, the only thing that is going to do it is going to be this pressure. It's going to be hardship. It's going to be a very brutal thing which will feel like we have been asleep our whole lives, unaware of what is going to happen to us. Unaware. And finally, we become sober. Finally, we realize that it doesn't matter what you think about the latest movie, oh, the latest gender, oh, the latest... It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Oh, he said something problematic. Oh, this celebrity. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. People are going to become sober. People are going to realize what really matters. If they can't realize it now, if they can't realize it before it happens, they will certainly realize after it happens. After it happens. Now, there's already a lot of Americans who are aware of this, and people act like they're crazy. People act like Black Americans are crazy, right? They love to. Especially the ones that are approaching the truth, you know. people like Kanye West, some groups have some strange or suspicious beliefs that, people don't agree with. Some people, I don't agree with everything Kanye says is true. But, he's approaching these conclusions, these greater conclusions of truth. And people have to label him crazy. And people have to label him crazy, especially for if he starts to figure out and talk about this global agenda, this global plan for failure and the destruction of the world, the gradual controlled demolition of the earth, because leaders are no longer willing to manage governments. They're no longer willing to govern properly, except through mass surveillance and control and gradual depopulation. Now, Kanye is approaching these things, which is why he must be crazy, why he must be deplatformed, why he must be medicated, why he must be shot down and destroyed. Alex Jones, another person who I don't agree with everything he says. I think he's very wrong about several, key ideas about how society should be structured. He may have a lot of good ideas about what's wrong and pointing out this corruption. Sometimes he goes too far and he, thinks that nothing is real. But Alex Jones is another such person who's approaching these truths and bringing us closer to these truths. It's true. And people like, even people like Tulsi Gabbard, who, have a more moderate view. Even people like Bernie Sanders, who have a very moderate view, bring people closer to greater realizations of truth. Tulsi mostly about war, Bernie more about economics. He brings us closer to the truth that there is enough for everybody. We don't need to have a eugenicist healthcare policy. We don't need to have a eugenicist economic policy, which is designed to kill off the poor. And we don't need to have this inequality. The people in power are trying to keep us away from these things. By manipulating social media, by manipulating narratives, they're trying to keep people away from these things. And we're fighting in an information war to make people aware of the fact that their very civilization is threatened and their way of life is threatened. Even for those who have very little in their way of life, their way of life is decaying. Even for those people, it is threatened. And if you can understand what I'm talking about, you need to make it your mission to bring about this change as well. You need to make it your mission to fight this battle for objective morality. Peace doesn't come from being peaceful. Peace doesn't come from smoking pot and being stoned. Peace comes from people that stand up for what's right. Democracy does not come from compromises with the establishment. Democracy, when you compromise with the establishment, you get compromised because they have the power. Democracy does not come from that. Democracy comes from people who maybe first you politely ask for representation, and if you don't get it, you demand representation. Democracy comes from that demand. So people need to start acting like bricks. People need to refine themselves in order to stand up as part of something greater. Something that can save the American nation or civilization, whatever you want to call America. Save it, and not just bring it back to the way that it was. Look, America was great in the sense that a great empire is great. It was great in the sense that it was large and powerful. Well, we no longer have access to that type of greatness, the greatness of our military, for example, and the greatness of the oppression of colonized people, that made us great because we stood above them, as a giant, this great giant. We no longer have access to that greatness. But what we do have access to is the greatness of the American cities, the greatness of the American technology, the greatness of America as the power to have massive agriculture and feed ourselves and feed the world, the greatness in the scale of our population and the power of our people. We do have access to that greatness still, and the only thing standing in the way of it is the policy decisions that are being made by the establishment, which are aimed to destroy that greatness. That is the greatness we need to strive for. And that greatness only comes from when people act like bricks in a wall, able to support something greater than themselves. It doesn't come from acting like a stone. It doesn't come from being stoned. It doesn't. And inevitably, when I grow and when I'm attacked, I want you to act like a brick in the wall. Just deny whatever the claim is and defend me. More specifically, defend me because you know that I'm right. And so no matter what I've done, unless I'm convicted of a crime, which I don't really, they would have to frame me up pretty badly, or I would have to decide to commit a crime, which I have no plans on doing, right? Unless it's something that's very, very serious and dire with no recovery from it, you should instinctively, automatically defend me because I'm right, because I'm saying the right things. You should. You should. And that's the same is true of anybody. The same is true of anybody. Why is it that I defend, for example, Scott Ritter after he was caught for, things which I don't need to bring up? If you know, you know. Why would I talk about Scott Ritter? Because his message is very, very important. He is one of the few people speaking the truth about Russia. So of course I would defend him. Of course I would. Who would not defend him? Right? This is how it works. Do you understand how it works or not? Right? Tara Reade. Why do I believe Tara Reade? Why do I uphold her message and her story? Why do I believe all of this? Because I believe that Joe Biden is evil. I believe that he is a satanic man who does not have any shred of morality. And I believe that he is wrong. And so I believe that he is capable of doing something as heinous as what he did to her. That's why I believe her. That is why I believe her. You need to understand this. What is right and wrong to somebody who's stoned, to someone who's a stone, is this fake, non-existent image of some perfect, untouchable person who's never done anything wrong, never said anything cancelable, never done anything where if you defend them, somebody else is going to come and attack them. Where it's socially unacceptable to defend them. Nobody, and especially nobody who's saying what I am, is going to remain that way for very long. That is how the stoned person thinks. They are afraid, deathly afraid, of being socially awkward, deathly afraid of being seen as guilty of something. This is because their memory and their sense of reality is being altered by this substance, and they think it's wisdom. They think it's wisdom. They smoke it, and they think these things. They think it's wisdom. They believe it, so that even when they're sober, they still are afraid. They still are afraid. You can't believe it. You can't believe it because you have to believe in objective morality. Be a brick, not a stone. This has been Hertz from Bismuth. Remember to like the video if you like it, dislike if you don't like it. Comment if you have something to add, maybe I missed something. Subscribe for more, and share this video around so that other people can get the message. See you next time.